thank you for coming, and welcome to the Woodrow Wilson Center to a session of the Southeast Europe Project. My name's Marty Sletzinger. I'm a director of a closely related program. We work together, the East European Studies. John Sidolides, who's the director of the Southeast Europe Project, is not unable to be here today. He's traveling internationally and on some business and is not able to make it back in time. So you've got me, but I have very little to do here. And I will pass along the word, as they say, very soon after I make a few words of introduction for our distinguished guest, who is Mr. Panos Livadas, who is the Secretary General of Information of Greece. He was born in Athens, and he graduated from Athens College, which is a high school. He obtained his business degree and in business administration and in political science at Hofstra University in New York and at the University of Florida. And so you will see when he speaks that actually his English is quite excellent, as a matter of fact. He sounds like a native. As a student, Mr. Livadas interned with the U.S. Senate and served in the student leadership positions while at the University of Florida. And in 1997, he earned a Master of Arts in Political Science and Sociology from the University of Athens, and he was awarded a doctorate in political science from that same university in 2007. In March 2004, he was appointed Secretary General of Information by the Prime Minister of Greece, Kostas Karamanlis, and his appointment was renewed after September 2007 general elections. And among his duties, he's in charge of Greece's communication strategy abroad and media relations. Quite a job. He has worked in the private business sector as well, both here and in Greece. And now I turn the floor over to Dr. Livadas.
Mr. Ambassador, Mr. Sletzinger.
Oh, yes, I'm very sorry. I didn't introduce Ambassador Maliasou, who most of you know anyway, who has delighted us with his presence here.
Nevertheless, you raised expectations as far as my English is concerned, and I want to tell you there is a language barrier here, and I'm just trying to hide it, that's all. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to express my warmest thanks to Woodrow Wilson Center for giving me the opportunity to share with you some thoughts on the performance of the Greek economy in the middle of an international crisis. As we all know, we are faced with a deep global financial crisis that is affecting all economies, some more than others. And that is exactly my point this afternoon, to show that the Greek economy is indeed resilient to this crisis. I am not implying, of course, that, and I wish to be very clear on this, that Greece is a detached place in the world, or that the consequences of the economic turbulence leaves us untouched. The truth is, of course, that we do feel these consequences, but it is equally true that Greece appears to be shielded against these consequences of the crisis for a number of reasons, and I feel very privileged to have the opportunity to discuss these reasons with you. Ladies and gentlemen, first things first, there is no doubt that we are in the middle of a crisis unmatched since the Great Depression, a once-in-a-century financial crisis. First, because of the wide extent of the negative effects, and second, because of the way it has descended down and across different economies. The pains of this crisis are not felt just here in the United States, but across the world. After all, we live in a globalized environment where both opportunities and challenges are common to us all. Simply put, no economy can be risk-proof in this environment. The non-financial aspects of this crisis are also alarming indeed. Growth rates are slowing down across the globe, while we hear more and more about the much-hated R word, recession. Unemployment is on the rise. Big businesses have simply gone out of business overnight. during 2008, and sometimes we miss to observe this. Prices of raw materials have increased by over 50%. Here I would like to explain the reasons why during this economic turmoil, the Greek economy has proven to be resilient, thanks to strategic choices and policy initiatives of the Greek state over the past 4 years, and the particular measures it has taken to mitigate risk. I'll take just a few minutes of your time to discuss some of these policies that have resulted in exceptionally brisk growth rates, and then to elaborate a little bit further on the measures taken in order to confront the international crisis itself. First of all, a strategic plan for the economy has been in place. To name just a few of these accomplishments: fiscal consolidation, upgraded and modernized infrastructure, new foreign direct investment, consolidation of social security funds, and finally history-making energy deals that establish Greece as a new energy hub for all of Southeastern Europe. Specifically, we have enjoyed one of the highest growth rates in the Eurozone, 3.2% for 2008, 2.9% according to European Commission estimates, while the Eurozone average is 0.9%. Actually, throughout the last few years, throughout the last 4 years, Greece has retained a growth rate in GDP that has been almost double, and sometimes even more than double, than the Eurozone average growth rates. Budget deficit plummeted from 7.4% in 2004 to 2.5% until October 2008. While now, and I know in the middle of this crisis, European Commission estimates is to be 3.4%. Estimates it to be 3.4%. Public debt was cut from a high of 98.6% in 2004 to 93.1% in 2008. Unemployment was reduced from 10.1% in 2004 to 7.5% in 2008. And behind numbers, we always have human stories. That number, 10.1% to 7.5%, means almost 300,000 new jobs, 80% of which have come from the private sector. And average foreign direct investments have multiplied in the recent years. You may agree with me, along with anyone else that has taken Economics 101 in college, that the coexistence of the above figures, namely high growth rates in association with reduced deficit and unemployment, is by any measure a pretty unique phenomenon. Coming now to the financial aspect of this crisis, people are asking, will Greece, with a medium-sized economy of approximately $325 billion, withstand the shock of the current crisis, the worst perhaps in 100 years? Of course, the growth of all the recent years, along with the other fundamentals of our economy that I just discussed briefly, offer a clear answer to the Cassandras of gloom and doom. But the fundamentals of our economy is not all. Before going into the particular policies that Greece adopted to shield itself further from the negative effects of the global crisis, let me just address a little bit the reason why the Greek banking sector today is fundamentally sound. And I choose to do that because, after all, this is a financial crisis, or at least that's how it started. Greek banks do not have a high dependency on external funding. The loan-to-deposit ratio is 108% compared to, let's say, 127% of large European banks. The leverage ratio, a term that we have heard so much about lately, since some believe it is the source of the current crisis. In Greece, this leverage ratio, which is assets to accounting equity, in Greece it's 12. Almost half of that of large banks in Europe, with a ratio of 23. And I have read, and correct me if I'm wrong, in the United States reaching approximately 30. Greek banks focus on traditional commercial banking activities with limited exposure to market risk and insignificant exposure to toxic financial products. Their energy and financial resources throughout these years have essentially been channeled to the expansion of their networks in the countries of Southeastern Europe. Now, turning to the particular policies pursued by Greece, Greece was the first country in the European Union to adopt legislation for the protection of bank deposits by increasing the guaranteed limit to $135,000 from the previous limit of approximately $25,000. That's 20,000 euros. The government also provided the banking sector with a financial package of $36 billion. So that it supports confidence among banks, and so that in turn banks can provide loans to the private sector and prop up the real economy. In addition, Greek banks have announced that they, as a sector, will continue to show significant profits in 2008, a forecast supported by the first three-quarter results. And a great proportion of these profits will be used to increase their own capital. European policymakers have publicly stated their appreciation for Greek results and full support for her efforts. The president of the European Central Bank, Jean-Claude Trichet, dismissed some negative speculation about Greece and for the euro in general as baseless, while the European Commissioner for Economic and Monetary Affairs, Mr. Almunia, has stated that the Greek authorities have the knowledge and the experience to face the conjuncture responsibly. But I believe that the most crystal clear answer to these Cassandras came from the market itself. The first Treasury bill auction of 2009 of the Greek state, providing for an inflow of approximately $3.5 billion, attracted offers totaling 6 times the amount of the required sum at an interest rate of approximately 5%, which is the normal interest rate. And this in a period where even the biggest economies of the world have difficulties in seeking liquidities in the market. Greece's resistance to the negative effects of the global crisis is clear when we take a quick comparative look at the European Commission predictions of the European Union countries for 2009. Down there in the southeast is Europe. The prediction is 1.1%. If you'll see very big countries like Spain and France and Great Britain have been sliding into the minus, and Germany and other countries. So this is an indication of a country that may not have a waterproof economy, but is showing resilience. As far as the unemployment is concerned, we are at 8%, and again you can see some of the comparative numbers. We're somewhere there in the average. And as far as our public deficit is concerned, which was, as I explained, approximately 7.5%, it went down to 2.5%. Now it's going to reach at minus 3.7%. We predict, this is the European Commission, we predict approximately that number of 3.4, 3.5%. But you can also comparatively take a look at the averages of the rest of the European Union. And I think that 3.5% is a decent performance, given the fact that the equivalent of the Gramm-Rudman resolution, help me out in my English here, about balanced budgets, it's in European terms is keeping the public deficit below 3%. Now it was 2.5%, but now in the country there are people and portions of the society that really need help, especially in light of economic crisis. So we need to spend more for them, but it's going to reach the deficit 3.5 to minus 3.7%. And we may return later on this. Our ability to shield the country against the effects of the crises and secure as much as possible, of course, the brisk performance is neither accidental nor temporary. It is thanks to the very reforms that have been and still are being diligently implemented. Allow me to mention some examples, choosing among the ones that took place after we last met here in the Woodrow Wilson Center a couple of years ago. On the front of the privatizations, the total income from the initiative between 2004 and 2007 was $8.5 billion, three-quarters of which was foreign capital. I should emphasize the privatization as another indicative example of the container terminal. That's only one port activity, or the largest port of the country, that of Piraeus. It will yield profits for the Port Authority amounting to approximately $164 million per year, when the corresponding profits today do not exceed $9.6 million per year, and that's 17 times more. In fact, in the tender, the bidding over was 7 times higher than the stock exchange value of the Piraeus Port Authority. This does not only benefit the respective local communities, but also the national economy, the private shareholders of the Port Authority, as well as every person or business who deals with the Port Authority. In addition, the geostrategic position of Greece will be further upgraded, as well as the country's role as a distribution hub and a gateway to Europe. The public-private partnerships also contribute significantly to the development of the Greek infrastructure and high-quality public services, offering the opportunity for increased financing of projects and public services. In general, the PPPs improve the investment and economic climate through a close and constructive partnership between the state and the private sector. In the past couple of years, 52 PPP projects have been approved. 13 of these projects have already been auctioned, generating a total amount of approximately $7.8 billion. The PPPs, a strategy successfully tested by countries like the United Kingdom, will bring a new generation of investment for our country. Moving on to the hot and thorny issue of the Social Security system, an issue on the agenda of all countries on both sides of the Atlantic, has also been successfully tackled. Coping with it is not easy, nor it is for all countries, and that's because every society tackles this issue in a different timing, because its settlement produces comprehensive results which affect all citizens. It is therefore an issue that should be treated with maximum consensus. The new system approved by Greece and established by law is a simple one, adapted to modern needs, and what specifically did was taking 133 bodies and consolidate them to only 13. Primarily, this new system is a viable one. It also creates economies of scale. In the first year of the implementation of the new system, there is a saving of more than $2 billion. And also it secures an efficient and transparent utilization of property. On the front of infrastructure, important steps have also been taken, again only for examples. In the last couple of years, the Athens Metro, for those who have visited Athens, is a very important step. It's now reaching out to most of Attica, and the construction of the Metro of Salonika, the northern capital of Greece, is well underway. And other landmark projects, the National Opera House, the new National Library, the Metropolitan Park of Ellinikon, that's approximately 650-hectare park, the largest in Europe, and to put that into perspective, the Central Park in New York covers approximately 340 hectares. Now, ladies and gentlemen, allow me just a few comments on the issue of security, which has drawn much international media attention over the incidents of violence that occurred in Athens last December, and on some unconnected demonstrations that took place during these days. Demonstrations which otherwise are so usual and so embedded with our democratic beliefs and practices. That is why I call those incidents of violence the hijacking of democracy. Actually, I have read about the particular interest Woodrow Wilson showed about it, organizing a very interesting discussion on this occurrence. People asked, what lied behind this arrest? Will it last? Have the Greek police been ineffective? Can the Greek government guarantee law and order and safety for its citizens and visitors alike? Let me try to answer some of those questions. The events were prompted by the killing of a 15-year-old student by a police officer on December 6th. The entire country, the government, the opposition, and the Greek people, most of all, expressed their condemnation, deep sorrow, and outrage at this tragic incident. Due process was followed. The two police officers responsible for this horrible act have been brought to justice. I think the charge is premeditated manslaughter. As the Greek youth were expressing in a peaceful manner the frustration over the killing of their fellow student, a small, marginal group of a few hundred extremists, self-styled anarchists, hijacked this outpouring of grief and used violence to pursue their agenda, which aims at nothing other than undermining the rule of law and democracy in Greece, as they have been doing unsuccessfully for the past 30 years. The Greek police was faced with a difficult task. On the one hand, to safeguard the democratic right of free expression and demonstration, while on the other to protect life and property. The decision not to risk further loss of life by adopting defensive tactics was compelled by the fact that a very large number of the demonstrators were teenagers. The authorities felt that we should not risk the repetition of the 1992 Los Angeles events. I am referring to the Rodney King incident, which resulted in 53 deaths and approximately 2,500 injuries. I should note that these police tactics are currently being evaluated as we speak. What is certain is that the Greek government is determined to protect law and order and will not allow these criminal elements to go unpunished. At least 350 of them have been arrested. The government also decided to compensate all those whose property was damaged and provide immediate financial relief and support for businesses and their employees who were affected by the destruction of their property. Contrary to the exaggerated claims by some international media that predicted a social revolution in Greece spreading to the rest of Europe and the collapse of the government, Greece is stable and safe. The government guarantees safety just as it guaranteed security for the Athens Olympics of 2004. I will not deny the seriousness of the situation we faced last December, but as the violence has subsided, and normalcy has returned, we should bear in mind that when all is said and done, we are talking about a few hundred anarchists bent on destruction, that the disturbances affected a small area of Athens, and that the rule of law prevails in the country. The dismantling of the November 17th terrorist organization in the summer of 2002 has essentially eliminated the terrorist threat in Greece. The reappearance of violent incidents like the attack on a policeman last month or against the United States Embassy in Athens 2 years ago is treated with due seriousness, of course, but there is no evidence that it constitutes the return of a lethal terrorist organization like November 17th. Let me also touch briefly on another related issue, that of illegal immigration. Even in these times of economic stress, the countries of the European Union are seen as havens of hope and even survival by the impoverished and forgotten populations of many Asian, African, and Middle Eastern countries. Violent conflicts, economic hardship, and demographic explosion is what we call the third world have swollen in the western-bound tide of the desperate families and individuals seeking a new and better life. The resulting problems of illegal immigration has become an increased concern for the chosen heavens of the European Union, and probably most of all for Greece, which as a border region of Europe has experienced during the past two decades a surge of immigration from both land and sea. Now almost 1 million people out of an 11 million population in Greece are immigrants, with some of 150,000 illegal immigrants arriving in Greece last year, using our country as an entry point to reach other European Union destinations. The economic, social, and humanitarian burdens of this massive influx are obvious. Greece is suffering a big drain of its resources in confronting a problem that concerns the whole of Europe, and this is why we call and we work closely with our partners for joint European action. Ladies and gentlemen, I have spoken of the global financial crisis and of the essential resilience that Greece has shown to its repercussions. Nevertheless, I feel compelled to stress that in the middle of this crisis, we should not lose our perspective. No economic crisis, no matter how deep it may be, can affect the foundations of the Greek economy or undermine its comparative advantages. These advantages, upon which is based, and will continue to be based, will not be affected by the uncertainties caused by the current financial crisis. Emergency planning is required to deal with this economic conjuncture, but no conjuncture will ever affect the structural characteristics of the Greek economy and its far-reaching achievements. No crisis will ever affect the love and the respect with which people from all around the world surround Greece, thanks to its cultural heritage, its unique beauty, its well-known hospitality, and what it brings to the Greek tourist industry. And I should not miss the opportunity here to mention the impact that the soon-to-be-open new Acropolis of Museum will have on the promotion of our cultural heritage to every corner of the world. No crisis will alter the fact that the Greek shipping sector will remain a leading force, providing the lion's share of the transport sector worldwide. No current hardship can change the fact that Greece has become one of the most important energy hubs in the world, thanks to 4 oil and natural gas pipelines underway. And nothing will ever change the geopolitical and geostrategic position of the country, a country that unites 3 continents, with more than 4,000 companies operating in southeastern Europe, and with a banking sector which today holds an almost 20% share of the region's banking turnover. In other words, nothing can diminish the force of the message that Greece sends to the world, that the message that it is no longer a market of 11 million people, but a gateway to a rapidly growing market of 160 million people. Ladies and gentlemen, some of you may remember that the last time we met here a couple of years ago, I used the time you kindly offered me to present the progress and the achievements of post-Olympics Greece, especially in the economic sector. Today, in the middle of a serious and unprecedented global financial crisis, I thought it would be useful to explain some of the reasons why Greece is better than ever prepared to face these grave challenges. I believe that the key success factor is working hard and capitalizing on opportunities when the times are good, in order to minimize adverse effect when the times are tough. The recipe for success requires not only to work hard and seize opportunities during prosperous times, but also to prepare prudently as to overcome the adversities and the predicaments of the lean times. For those that follow Formula One car racing, you will agree with me that what wins a race is not driving fast on a straight road, but making the turns skillfully. I firmly believe that in the end of the current global crisis will find Greece stronger and more competitive. And when we next meet, our discussion will probably focus once again to the progress, the achievements, the developments, the successes of Greece on her way to a bright future. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you.